computer. So welcome everybody. My name is Paul Bailey. I'm the Diocese of Manchester's giving advisor, and we're going to be talking today about will writing, and particularly the online will writing pilot that we're very privileged to be invited to take part in by the National Church team and to work so closely with Farewill. So if we go around the room, if we start off with Helen, would you mind introducing yourself? And I'll let the Farewill team to, whoever wants to go first, you can go first and then pick on somebody else. I think that's probably the best thing.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for introducing me. I'm Helen Simpkiss. I'm a regional giving advisor for the national giving team of the Church of England. And I've been working with Paul and the Farewill team to coordinate this pilot project. I'm really excited for the project to launch in the Diocese of Manchester and to get going. And I will now hand over to, I'll just nominate somebody, Emma, because she's directly next to me on my screen, to introduce herself.
Thanks, Helen. Hi, my name is Emma and I lead our account management team at Farewill, which means I lead our team that work with over 200 charities in the UK, which is really exciting to help grow legacy fundraising with our will services. So I've been working really closely with Helen and the wider Farewill team to launch this pilot and support you to deliver it, which is really exciting. So I'll hand you over as well to Michael.
Hi everyone. Yeah, I'm Michael. I'm the Church of England's account manager here at Farewill. So yeah, we're super excited to start this this pilot and get it underway and talk to you about it here today. So yeah, I will now throw over to Loz.
Thanks. I'm Loz, full name Lorraine, but most people know me as Loz. I am head of legal at Farewill. I'm a private client solicitor by background. I've been at Farewill for 3.5 years plus a little bit longer as a consultant. So have been for a while making sure that we're getting the law right across all of our services here at Farewill. And I'll hand over quickly to Paula and my team.
Hi, yeah, I'm Paula. I'm a solicitor at Farewill and support Loz in the legal team to make sure that we get everything correct on the will side of the business.
Super. So what we're going to do today is the webinar is going to be split into 3 different sections. So Helen from the National Church Giving team is going to go first. Then we'll get Farewill to share their slides, and then I'll go last. We'll stop at the end of each section. So please, if you've got any questions or queries, please put them in the chat or Q&A section at the bottom of the screen. If you move your mouse to the bottom there. So I'll try and keep an eye on that whilst Helen's talking. And then I'll do the same for Farewill. And then if someone could feed the comments to me when I'm doing that, that'd be grand. So I'll hand over to Helen first of all.
Thanks very much, Paul. So I'm just going to talk for a few minutes, about 10 minutes, about why legacy giving is an important thing for churches in the Church of England. As Paul said, if you have any questions, please do send them across in the chat or the Q&A, and we'll be able to answer them. And if there's anything I can't answer, perhaps the Farewill team might be able to, or we can always follow up with you after email. And I think Paul's going to be sharing the slides as well, so you'll have access to all the links that I mentioned. So why should Church of England churches encourage gifts and wills? Well, there's 4 kind of really key reasons why we really encourage churches to think about promoting legacies and encouraging their congregations to consider leaving a gift in their will to their church. Firstly, gifts and wills present a huge potential financial opportunity for future sustainability. We've seen during the pandemic that churches with bigger reserves have been able to be more resilient during challenging financial times. And gifts and wills, often people are able to give much more through a gift in their will than they were ever able to give as a cash gift in their lifetime. So there's a really big financial opportunity there. They're also a really low cost way of fundraising. We really encourage you to think about asking and encouraging gifts and wills just by sort of occasional drip feeding messaging, mentions a few times a year. This isn't something that requires a really swish and fancy marketing campaign. It's just something that you can mention regularly, and we're going to be giving you lots of tips in this webinar for how to do that. I'm not going to talk in great detail about the theological reasons for encouraging gifts and wills, but like all generous giving, we can see gifts and wills as a final opportunity for people to make a lasting gift of thanks to God for the gifts they've been given in their life. And finally, gifts and wills, those two taboo subjects, money and death, that people feel really uncomfortable talking about, are actually a really life-affirming opportunity. They are somebody's life-held final wishes for how they want to be remembered and how they want their values to transfer into the future. They're only activated by death, so I think we can see them as a really positive and exciting opportunity. For the wider charity sector, legacies are a really important source of income, and they are growing year on year. At the moment, they're worth about £3 billion a year to the charity sector. And to put that figure in context, it would take, I think, something like 2 million more runners running the London Marathon for the next 50 years to raise that same amount of money. So they're a really valuable source of income for many charities, and that figure is expected to grow to about 10 billion by 2050. I've mentioned already the importance of reserves on charity finances for future sustainability. And of course, not all legacy gifts are unrestricted, but they do, the majority of gifts left to the Church of England are unrestricted, and they tend to be really useful for building up banks of reserves. To the Church of England, they're worth around £60 million a year, which is a really important chunk of voluntary giving to our churches across the country. And in the next 30 years, as the generations, as we move between the generations, it's estimated that about 5.5 trillion will pass between generations. So there's a huge opportunity into the future. But there are some challenges around legacy giving in Church of England churches, and the findings here came out of a recent survey, some market research that we conducted, where we surveyed, the National Giving Team surveyed 2,000 Anglicans who self-identified as Anglicans and attended a church service in an Anglican church at least once a month. So quite a committed group of Anglicans. But the findings were quite worrying in some ways, because we saw that in the findings that Church of England churchgoers are hugely generous, and they are generous with legacy giving as well. But they are 3 times as likely to leave a legacy to a charity than they are to our church. And I think one of the key reasons behind this is the fact that only 15% of Anglicans have ever actually asked to support their church by leaving a legacy. So it's something that Anglicans are willing to do. We can see that because they are leaving charitable gifts in their wills to charity, but they don't understand the need to leave them to the churches. And I think if we think about legacy giving in relation to this really useful acronym MINT, we can see some of the key areas that we need to think about when we're thinking about why legacies are important and why we might want to encourage them. So legacy giving in itself and will writing is a mechanism. It's part of the whole toolkit of giving options that we provide in our church, whether that's regular giving, standing order, or using the Gift Aid Light scheme at the diocese, or things like contactless giving. Legacy giving as a concept fits into that. But actually, we need to think about the 3 other areas of the acronym MINT, the I and N and T, if we are to really be successful in encouraging people to consider this form of giving and leave gifts. So we need to think about the impact of giving. We need to be able to share with people what impact their gift in their will could have on our church into the future. So what will be achieved for your church? What's the vision of your church into the future? And what could people's gifts help to achieve for the mission and ministry of your church? As I mentioned already, we need to emphasize the need. We need to encourage people to think about what your church will require to serve future generations. And this can be as simple as just regularly mentioning gifts and wills alongside any other giving that you mention. And finally, we really need to ensure that trust is there. We need to establish trust so that people see us as a transparent organisation that will use their gift wisely, so they can really trust us to spend it well, and for that their gift will have the impact that we are suggesting that it will have. And legacy policies, having a PCC legacy policy in place is a really key part of that. And there is some more information on our website, and I'll be talking a little bit in a couple of minutes about why legacy policies are so important. One of the things that I want to address first, though, is about is in response to a question that, as we've been rolling out this pilot project with Farewill, we've come across a number of times, and churches have said, oh, well, we're a bit afraid to talk about legacies during the pandemic because it's a really sensitive subject, and we're worried that in these difficult times that it's something that's far too insensitive to talk about. Well, actually, I think that the church has a really important role to play in supporting people to prepare for death, to think about death. And actually some research that the life events team, so the team at Church House that support funerals, weddings and baptism ministry, recently looked at people's attitudes to the Church of England during the pandemic. And two really interesting findings here. Firstly, 61% of people agreed that the church should definitely offer a listening ear about death. And 55% of people thought that the church had a key role to play in preparing people for death. And will writing is wrapped up in that. It's about getting your estate in order. Really interestingly, 1 in 4 people have thought about during the pandemic a fear of dying, whether there is life after death, how they might be remembered, or dying alone. And again, the church shouldn't shy away from encouraging people to make sure that they're prepared. When people are thinking about what gifts they might leave in their will to charity, a key part of the decision that people make, research has found, is about helping people to ensure that their values live on into the future. So the values that people really find important in their church life, in their church family, be it their faith or the community work, for example, by leaving a gift in their will to support those activities, they are ensuring that they will continue into the future. If this is something that you might want to find out more about and encourage more in your church, there's actually a really interesting toolkit that I can recommend you have a look at called Grave Talk, which is about a death cafes project, which creates a space to talk about death, dying and funerals. So the other thing I wanted to talk to you about is the fact that will writing and encouraging will writing and people to get their affairs in order is something that the Church of England has been encouraging for over 500 years. Since the 1662 edition of the Book of Common Prayer, the Church of England has been really encouraging ministers to make sure that their congregations are writing wills, and there's a lovely quote here from that edition of the prayer book. Let him then be admonished to make his will for the better discharging of his conscience and the quietness of his executors. Men should often be put in remembrance to take order for the settling of their temporal estates whilst they're in health. There's so much to unpack here, but I think some of the key points to take away are the fact that you feel better when you have a will. Your estate is in order, you know your loved ones will be cared for, and your wishes are written down to be carried out. And the key thing about it is to do it whilst people are in health. So this is something to do whilst you're in good health, when you are prepared to do it, rather than all the challenges that come with not having your estate in order later down the line, should you actually need to do it. And we're still encouraging will writing as a simple act of good Christian stewardship for 2021. There are so many reasons and that having every Christian should have a will, and we actually have a simple leaflet that's freely available for you to put in your churches that sets out some of these key reasons. Your choice is enabled by having a will. You can dictate how you'd like your estate to be passed out. Your children can be cared for, particularly if they're under 18. You can set out guardianship. requirements for them. You can disperse your property as you like. You can also reflect modern family life, because there's no guarantees, depending on your family circumstances, how your estate would be distributed if you died without a will. If inheritance tax is a concern for you, you can make arrangements in your will to ensure that that is set out. You can, of course, as we hope people will, leave a charitable gift to charity or legacy. And finally, you get that peace of mind with knowing that it's all sorted out. And that's something that people put off because they don't want to think about it. But having that peace of mind is a real value. So coming to the end of my presentation now, but how can you actually go about encouraging gifts and wills? Paul is going to talk a lot more about this specific will writing project with Farewill, and this, I think, should be at the forefront of your mind. But in general, we've got 4 simple steps that we recommend. The first is to visit churchprinthub.org, where you can request a free PCC legacy toolkit, as well as lots of free legacy leaflets that set out everything that you need to do and think about to encourage legacy giving in your church. Secondly, at an upcoming PCC meeting, discuss a legacy policy and then communicate that you've done this widely. So a legacy policy is a policy agreed on by the PCC that sets out how you will use legacy gifts if you receive them, whether that's to automatically put all gifts into a building fund, for example, or to use them for your general purposes. It's up to you. We have a template online that helps you think about this and decide what your policy will be. But it's really important to have a policy in place to help you know how to administer a legacy when you receive one, and also to help with that transparency that I talked about. Then make information freely available. We have lots of leaflets, and there's also lots of materials available through the Farewill project, and talk about legacies as widely as possible, whether that's looking at case studies from churches that have received them and used them for particular projects. Perhaps your church has received a legacy in the past that you can celebrate. Talk about them in the parish magazine or in thank you letters. There's all sorts of places that you can, everywhere that your church family meets, you can talk about legacies. But a really simple one is, way to do it is, when you write thank you letters to your regular givers, just include a simple statement that says something like, we like to thank everyone who's given through standing orders or who has pledged a gift in their will. Just a simple statement like that reminds people that they can leave a legacy to your church and that it's something you're really grateful for. So that was a very quick whistle-stop tour through why churches should encourage legacy giving. But if you'd like to get in touch with me, I'm available at giving@churchofengland.org, and we'll be very happy to answer any questions you have. So I will stop sharing my screen and hand over to the Farewill team.
Okie dokes, that's me to try and share mine now then. Here we go. I think that's worked. Has that worked?
Yeah, that's coming through.
Okay, excellent. So good afternoon again, everyone. Thanks for your time this afternoon. I'm excited to introduce you to Farewill and take you through some of the details of the free will service that we've set up with the Church of England. So today we will run through a quick intro to Farewill as a company and who we are here today. Some will writing trends we've seen, particularly in 2020, which was obviously quite a strange year, and along with some wider trends. And finally, what the C of E and your supporters can expect from us and from our service. So I won't spend too long on this because we all sort of introduced ourselves earlier, but the team we've got today are myself. I'm the account manager for our strategic charity partnerships at Farewill. So I look after the largest charities we partner with, including the Church of England. Emma's our account management team lead and was really heavily involved in setting up this partnership before I joined Farewill. So she's come along today to answer any questions that might come up later on. And Loz is our head of legal, who will take you through some of the aspects of Farewill and our service from a legal point of view. And obviously Paula is here too, but I have yet to go on LinkedIn and steal your profile picture for slides. I promise to do that later. So a bit about Farewill. We opened our doors in 2015 and already we're the UK's largest will writer, helping over 70,000 people write their wills and winning a number of industry awards along the way. We currently work with over 200 charity partners, And to date, we've seen over £350 million pledged to charity. And we're very excited about this free will service with the Church of England. Our company aim is to change the way the world deals with death, which is really one of the last taboos, as Helen alluded to earlier. And we're extremely proud of our consistently high reviews, particularly on Trustpilot, like the one on the screen there. I'll give you a second to read through the quote, but the headline really highlights how simple and easy our service can be to use, making your will writing simple and easy from the comfort of your own home. So I'll now hand over to Loz to take you through the next few slides, starting with will writing trends. That's quite hard to say.
Thanks, Michael. And you may have just jinxed me into being unable to say that from here on. So let's see. But no, what I wanted to kind of talk through before we kind of get into our service is just some of the things that we learnt over the last 12 to 18 months, particularly in writing so many wills during the pandemic, and what we've learned about the behaviour of customers as well. 2020 we can all accept was a year not a year like no other in many ways, and it made so many of us reflect on how we plan for death. We saw huge increases in demand for our services very early on. We were seeing NHS email addresses, for example, pop up in our wills in kind of February, which made us actually launch a free will service for NHS workers at the time. But what we also saw was an increase in how people were thinking about friends and family and charity, and increases in thinking about causes that they loved during the pandemic as well. So that increased reflection on mortality came through in how people were thinking about causes in their wills as well, which was an increase on our 2019 figures. Next slide, please, Michael. And one of the kind of most stark differences that we saw, something that you might assume about Farewill is that it's only a kind of certain generation that are using our service, but actually all sorts of demographics find using a service like ours helpful and easy to use. But we also saw huge shifts in younger people making wills as well, and a really high gift inclusion rate in people aged 50 to 60 as well, being a kind of quarter of all the customers of ours who are leaving gifts to charity. Next slide, please. And this is a kind of fascinating piece of data, that because we've got so much data at Farewill, because our customers tend to use our online service and our phone service, we gather huge amounts of data that we could really pinpoint the events that either led to people to want to make a will or to not make a will. And that the day that our Prime Minister went into intensive care was the busiest day that we had in Farewill last year, whereas the kind of quietest day was the day that the Pfizer vaccine was approved for use in the UK. So it really does kind of correlate how people are feeling about death and mortality, really correlates to whether they get over that apathy of wanting to make a will or not. Essentially, everybody appreciates that it's an important thing to do, but what actually makes them want to go and do it, events that are going on around you, do encourage people to get on with writing their will. And then next slide, please. So what we've seen in 2021 so far, we've kind of analysed the 2020 data, but it's not going away. People are still, the engagement that they've had with more remote services and with thinking about mortality, people are still writing wills well into 2021, and we've already seen nearly 72 million left to charities in wills that we've written this year already. So we're not seeing things kind of fall off in terms of volumes this year. Next slide, please. So that kind of summarises some of the data that we've seen. And then I want to talk a little bit about our service, and I think Emma will talk about the Church of England journey particularly. But just to highlight, making a will is really important that you get the law right, and whichever kind of service you use, you need to be sure that that the service is going to get things right for you. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about how we approach that at Farewill. As I've said, I'm head of legal, and I've got a team, including Paula, who wonderfully helps us get the law right day to day. But we stay at the kind of forefront of legal and policy changes. I'm also the chair of the Law Society Wills and Equity Committee, which means that I'm involved in policy changes from the Law Commission, and also with Step Wales as well. And the team of solicitors that we've got supported our customers and our will specialists have got decades of experience in wills and probate, and can really make sure that we're targeting that legal expertise where people need it, so that we can still help customers get their will done as quickly as possible and as pain-free as possible. Next slide, please. So I think this is the last one for me. And just to kind of call out a key difference with us at Farewill to other online will writing services, and it's a really important one for me as a solicitor and a little bit of a control freak, that all wills are checked by humans at Farewill. So when a supporter of yours goes onto the Farewill website and they create a will, they're completely supported by tech throughout their process to make it personal to them and to make it easy, and something that they can do at any time of day wherever they are. And we've got algorithmic safeguards that can make sure that they're kind of supported on that journey and prompted with the right information. But before a will can be downloaded, it is one of the team who will check over that will, make sure that there's nothing that appears that they might have got incorrect, like a spelling error, or if they've left a very large gift to charity, that they've left an explanation for their family as to why they've done that, so it can help with any conflicts. And that support from our will specialist is also available 7 days a week, 9 till 7, so that we can make sure that we're supporting customers where they are and not needing them to kind of visit us in an office or anything like that. And finally, if there's anything that does kind of raise us needing to clarify it with the customer, we give them specific tailored guidance, which means that they can address any changes that they need to make in their will, and then get their will signed and back to them. And our SLA for doing all of that is 5 working days, but we tend to work to about 2 working days on that. And that's it from me, and over to the next slides and to Emma.
I think it's back to me, actually. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. It just means everyone's got a little bit more of my voice, I'm afraid. So I'm now going to take you through the bespoke journey that we've developed with the Church of England, starting with some tailored prompts, such as the example on the right that you can see there, to encourage people to consider supporting their local church in their wills. These prompts come at 2 main points in the journey, one being when the supporter's dividing up their estate, and the other is when they get to the point of leaving cash gifts. The most unique part of the Church of England's bespoke journey with Farewill is the ability to search and leave a gift to a specific church using the postcode search engine or the area search engine there, which feeds into a drop-down list of churches that the user can choose from. So how people start the journey: each campaign with Farewill comes with a bespoke web page, or a landing page as we call them. And it's really important that supporters are directed to these web pages, as that ensures that they receive the bespoke Church of England journey that I just laid out in the last few slides. It's particularly important because if people come to the normal Farewill site directly without using the bespoke landing pages, they'll still be able to redeem the voucher code at the end for the discount, but they're not going to receive the bespoke Church of England journey at all. So it's very important that those links are correct. This here is an example of what your bespoke Church of England landing page will look like. As you can see, it's co-branded with the Church of England logo in the top banner, and it also quotes the voucher code underneath, but that will automatically be applied at checkout anyway. And just to finish off, here again, I've got some of our Trustpilot reviews. This time it's specifically people who've come to us via a charity's free will service. And highlighted here are some the importance of having an up-to-date will, and again, the ease of use and the peace of mind that using Farewill can give, which links quite nicely into what Helen was saying earlier. So yeah, thanks very much for listening to us. I'm sure, I don't know if any sort of questions have come through, but yeah, we'll be happy to answer. Come out of that. Oh no, is that no
I
question?
can't
Or
see.
back to Paul.
No, I can't see anything in
Got off
the
lightly.
chat box. That means they're all coming to me, of course, at the end. So what I will do is I'm going to run through what we're going to be offering to support our churches in the Diocese of Manchester, and starting by outlining how our pilot in Manchester is going to be working. So I'm going to do a little bit of screen sharing now as well. Yeah, we're delighted that, the National Giving Team has chosen us to be one of 2 dioceses. Manchester and Winchester are the 2 out of the 42 in the Church of England that are working with Farewill on this pilot. And, a massive thank you to the churches who are going to be here to attend webinars this afternoon and also tomorrow evening. And how we're going to run the pilot is in two different ways. We're going to be promoting legacies using a slightly different voucher code to the one that Michael showed on his PowerPoint. So we'll be promoting legacies via our e-newsletter, social media pages, and our website. We've got our own unique voucher code that will be used for that. And then enabling our churches to do the same via their various different promotional methods that they have available to them. So whether that's the leaflets at the back of church, social media, website, a church near you, word of mouth, and using a second voucher code to do that. The reason why we've chosen those 2 elements is Winchester are doing it in a slightly different way and working solely with a small group of churches. We want to test to see whether, if the messaging comes directly from the diocese or if it comes directly from the churches, whether that makes a difference in terms of the success of people writing wills and hopefully including their church as a beneficiary of that will. The key thing is that I'm going to be sharing a lot of information, not to share the voucher codes on their own, to do that via some of the resources that I've created for you to use. So the timescales, obviously we've got the webinars today, tomorrow. We're allowing a couple of weeks for churches to prepare their resources, using the information from the diocese, from the National Church Giving Team, ordering stuff from the Church Print Hub. We're going to be looking at a start date from Sunday the 11th of July onwards, and we thought it would be a good idea to have an end date just so that we can start to then measure how successful things have been. So that is going to be the end of August for an end date. So the template resources we created for churches is we now have a dedicated legacy giving page on the Diocese of Manchester website, and the resources available on there include a downloadable document to add a legacy page with the information from the link for Farewill, add the other methods of writing a will, the traditional methods that Helen mentioned during her PowerPoint slide, that you can either add to your website or church near you. Similar information around funeral planning, that whole thing about putting your estate in order in advance, and the pastoral care that churches can offer to their members of their congregations to support them and know that they've got them right until the very end of their lives. And again, that is available for your website and a church near you. We've got some example newsletter copy, some example social media posts, and things like that to help you on your way. A church near you. I look after a church near you, the website for my own church at St Michael's in Flixton. These are the admin pages for the 2 pages that I've already created. and I'll show you what they look like in a minute. I'll come out of the PowerPoint slide and show you what that looks like. But I've also added in a link there, which will take you to the instructions on how to add a page to a church near you if you're unsure. Obviously, everybody's website provider will be different, so I'm not going to touch on that because I could be here probably until I need to plan my own funeral going forward. So I'll leave that. I'll leave that there. But the website, again, this is our website, and again, some examples of the pages that I've created with some relevant imagery from our church. You know, I love that plaque at St Michael's, the one that I'm just highlighting my mouse over, which is a little plaque that stands alone from when electricity was first brought into the church building, which was supported by a legacy. There's nothing of the electricity infrastructure left associated with that. It's just in splendid isolation on a wall, but I thought I had to include that on our page. So so if I just come out and then come back in again and share the website page, you'll see in support for parishes and parish finances, there is the legacy giving and funeral planning page. So you'll see that there is lots of information in here about why it's important to leave a legacy. There's the details about the free online will writing service and the link to our voucher code and the webpage at Farewill that people can click on. But we've also got some other legacy advice and resources coming through in here with hyperlinks and funeral planning, all there so that you can utilise all of this to make life easier for yourself going forwards. And if I show you what that looks like in a church near you, this is me as a visitor looking at the St Michael's page. So you can see the funeral planning page. I've added new pages for funeral planning and legacies down the side menu here with information about why it's good to plan, and the funeral wishes planner tool that's available in here. So that's all there. Copy and paste and put that in with the hyperlinks built in. And then similarly, the legacy information is all here. You can copy and paste it with all the hyperlinks built in. So you can see there's the Manchester Churches one that Michael mentioned during his PowerPoint slide that people can click on and access that with our display, you know, the disclaimer built in. And then other options of, you know, if you have a more complex will or you need to amend a will that's already in place, advice and hyperlinks on how you can do that. That information is available right there. And then just to show what that looks like on the live website page, you can see there we go that we've got the funeral planning information in here. And then if we go through onto the next page, there's the legacy gift one that I mentioned in the PowerPoint slide. So you can see I've literally just taken what I've done and put it straight into the pages to try and make that as easy as possible for you to use. So if I come back into the PowerPoint and click onto the next slide. So template promotional materials will be made available in the coming days. But I'm sharing on the PowerPoint slide here some examples that we've already got in terms of newsletter, parish magazine, social media posts.
Sorry to interrupt, Paul. I'm still on the web page myself. I'm not.
Oh, thank you very much. It said that I was still sharing, so I will come back in again into the PowerPoint and just give me a yay if you can see that now.
That's the one, yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. The joys of Zoom. So yeah, lots of template promotional materials in here in terms of newsletter, parish magazine, social media, some example articles you could look at for parish magazine and newsletters that you might want to look at with examples from your own church community. And additionally, if we then go on to the next slide, some example simple newsletter copy that you could drop into your parish magazine, inserting your church name in there, mentioning Farewill, that's there for you to look at and have access to. Some example Facebook posts from the National Church team about legacy writing and leaving a gift in your will that you can utilise and pick up and utilise your own examples to illustrate your own posts. And then if we move on to the National Church resources, some of this that Helen has mentioned, but I think it's well worth reiterating. I've got the hyperlinks built into here for the Church Legacy website, where there's lots of information for will writers, PCCs and executors of wills. Writing a legacy policy, there's the hyperlink for the policy template that Helen mentioned there, and then the church planning, funeral planning tool and the downloadable plan. And then if we then move on, these have got hyperlinks all in here for all of the resources from Church Print Hub that you can look at ordering. Most are free, but there are a couple of customizable resources where you can pay small sum to get a number of those if you so wished. But as I say, all the links are there for you to go and look at those and order them. I actually ordered these for my own church before the pandemic started, and they're still sat next to my home desk because I've not been able to take them into the building yet. So yeah, really speedy service and some fantastic resources that people can utilise. And so I'm going to stop there with any questions and come out of the screen share just to see if any questions have actually arrived in the chat or the Q&A, and there aren't any. We must have done such a fantastic job, team. So in terms of doing everything already that people might want to ask. So I think with that, seeing that we've got no questions at the bottom, it's probably a good time to say thank you to the panelists, the team at Farewill, and to Helen from the National Giving team, and to the churches from our diocese. Over the next couple of weeks, don't be a stranger. If you need help or support, please get in touch. If I don't know the answer, I've got people on screen who I can point you in the right direction to. And, you know, we're here to make this work for your churches by making it as easy as possible for you to add things to website Church Near You and start talking about this important issue that we need to be looking at. So with that, thank you for coming. Thanks, Michael, Emma, Loz, Paula, and to Helen. And I shall end the webinar. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Have a nice.
Thanks then. Bye-bye.